Amazon founder Jeff Bezos will likely still be the world's richest man after his divorce from his wife Mackenzie is finalized.
What happens though sometimes is that we let our intellectual selves overrule those passions. And so that's what needs to be guarded against.
And to me, watching your spouse, somebody that you love, have an adventure, what is better than that? And being part of that.
Exactly. Over the years, Jeff Bezos has earned many titles: tech innovator, determined entrepreneur, space exploration advocate, and one of the wealthiest individuals on the planet. Yet despite his prominence, few truly understood the person behind the public image that changed dramatically following his widely publicized divorce from his first wife, Mackenzie Scott. Once every detail of their separation was finalized, Mackenzie walked away with a 4% share in Amazon valued at over $35.8 billion. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media. And now, just as the public is adjusting to the reality of Bezos' remarriage, another unexpected development has surfaced, something no one saw coming. So, what's the new twist? Let's take a closer look. Jeff Bezos' revelation. When Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott publicly announced their split, interest in their personal lives surged. Their 25-year marriage had been a rare example of enduring partnership in the business world. It wasn't just the length of their relationship that stood out, but the fact that together they had built one of the most valuable companies from the ground up. Then, quite suddenly, it ended. One day they were seen as a powerful, inseparable duo. The next, they were moving toward divorce. It was during this period that the public first learned of the woman who would later become Bezos' partner, Lauren Sanchez. Speculation grew, and headlines buzzed with rumors. But what many didn't realize at the time was that this story was only partially revealed. There was still much more beneath the surface. Exactly. There's more to the story between Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott than most people ever realized. There are parts of his life that only Mackenzie truly understood, things even Lauren Sanchez, his current wife, wasn't aware of. In fact, this new revelation played a key role in why Jeff and Mackenzie's marriage came to an end, and now, that hidden part of the story is coming to light. Back in January 2019, when the news of their divorce first broke, many people were left wondering what really led to that moment. After 25 years of marriage, Jeff and Mackenzie had decided to part ways. But it wasn't the divorce alone that caught everyone's attention, it was what followed shortly after. Within days, headlines began circulating. The National Enquirer published a series of stories claiming to have obtained private text messages, secret meetings, and intimate photos exchanged between Bezos and former news anchor Lauren Sanchez. The public was captivated. For weeks, Jeff Bezos' personal life took center stage, even overshadowing major political news and celebrity stories. The media narrative was straightforward. Jeff Bezos had left his wife for another woman. There was plenty of criticism and speculation. People questioned what more a man like him could possibly want. He appeared to have everything: a long-lasting marriage, one of the world's most successful companies, and a partner who had stood by him from the very beginning. But now, years after the media storm and the public backlash, a more subtle and complex truth has come forward, one that very few were aware of. According to Jeff Bezos himself, Mackenzie already knew the truth long before the rest of the world did. The affair, it turns out, wasn't the only reason for their separation. While the public was shocked by the news about Lauren Sanchez, Mackenzie wasn't. She had known about Lauren's presence even before the media did, before any news broke, before the blackmail incident, and even before the couple publicly acknowledged their divorce. At one point, Jeff shared something that suggested Mackenzie had already accepted the situation. He said, in a way, she gave him the freedom to leave before he ever made that decision. It was almost like a final act of understanding from her. What stood out even more was that Lauren Sanchez had met Mackenzie years prior to the divorce. It was a quiet, private meeting at Lauren's office. It didn't last long, and the mood was calm, almost strangely so. Mackenzie arrived unannounced. Before leaving, she looked Lauren in the eye and said something that stayed with her. Jeff Bezos would love her, like he built her, and she should be sure she could handle it. Lauren had expected a confrontation, some emotional outburst from a wife betrayed, but to her surprise, Mackenzie didn't react that way. There were no harsh words or threats. Instead, she offered a measured warning, one filled with quiet wisdom. Mackenzie came across as someone who fully understood what being with Jeff Bezos truly meant, both the brilliance and the burden. To the public, it looked like a scandal fueled by betrayal. But based on this new insight, it wasn't about betrayal at all. It was a shift to transition. From the outside, it seemed like Mackenzie chose grace over conflict. She didn't lash out or seek revenge. She signed the divorce papers, accepted her settlement, and quietly stepped away from the spotlight. But their relationship had been struggling long before Lauren Sanchez was involved. Something deeper had been affecting their marriage, something Jeff Bezos himself had avoided facing for a long time. This hidden truth had slowly caused problems in their relationship. Problems that no one outside could see. On the surface, it looked like a marriage strained by success and time. But the real issue was personal, something Jeff had carried with him for years. And today, Mackenzie Scott, once married to the founder of Amazon and one of the richest men in the world, is remarried. Not because of the wealth they built or the business empire they led, but because of a truth she uncovered, one she was never meant to find. It all began with an old journal. It was a leather-bound notebook Jeff had used during Amazon's early days, back when they were working out of a garage, surviving on takeout, and barely sleeping. Mackenzie discovered it while packing books in their old Seattle home. But what she found inside wasn't about business or company goals. Tucked between the pages was a letter. It wasn't addressed to her, it was written to Jeff's estranged father, the man who had walked out of his life. Mackenzie opened the letter and read it. It revealed a side of Jeff she had never seen. The words were filled with unresolved emotion, raw, painful, and deeply personal.
Under the settlement, which they announced yesterday, she will receive nearly $36 billion in Amazon stock.
In it, he wrote about how his father never returned and how everything he built, Amazon, Blue Origin, and even his public image, wasn't for business or recognition. It wasn't even for himself, it was for the man who abandoned him. All his accomplishments, all the success, were part of a mission to prove something to someone who wasn't there to witness it. In that moment, Mackenzie finally understood. Jeff hadn't been building a company out of passion alone, she did it to send a message to his father. Jeff Bezos dismissed Mackenzie's remarks, saying they didn't really matter, but deep down, he knew she was right. Years later, as he begins a new chapter with Lauren Sanchez, he wants to do it with honesty. So, he decided to share a hidden part of his past with her. Lauren sat across from Jeff Bezos, stunned into silence as he opened up. He explained that Mackenzie didn't walk away because he was unfaithful, she left because she feared their children would grow up chasing a love that might never be returned. Mackenzie had seen signs that Jeff could repeat the very pattern that hurt him as a child. The pattern of becoming the kind of absent man who once left him behind. It wasn't only the affair that broke their marriage. It was her realization that, despite all of Jeff's success and brilliance, he was still haunted by the little boy who waited by the window for a father who never came. She didn't want her kids to experience the same pain. In truth, Mackenzie wasn't just leaving a husband, she was ending a generational cycle. As part of the divorce settlement announced yesterday, Mackenzie received nearly $36 billion in Amazon stock for the first time. Lauren Sanchez saw the full weight Jeff Bezos had been carrying. She looked past the billionaire image and saw a wounded son still building towers of success to gain approval from someone who was never going to witness them. After opening up to Lauren, Jeff took another unexpected step to show he was serious about starting over. It caught everyone off guard. Once the divorce headlines faded, the world moved on. Jeff Bezos rebranded himself. He stepped down as Amazon's CEO and reemerged as a visionary driven by space exploration and big ambitions. Meanwhile, Mackenzie Scott was also reinventing herself. Overnight, she became one of the 5 richest people in the world. Many assumed she would deliver keynote speeches or indulge in billionaire luxuries. Instead, she chose a different path, giving away billions to causes in need. From food banks and education to women's shelters and climate programs, she donated more in 2 years than most billionaires give in a lifetime, and she did it all without seeking the spotlight. Since their divorce, Jeff and Mackenzie's lives have gone in completely different directions. Over time, it became harder to picture them as a couple. Still, their love story remains one of the most iconic in America's business world. Some parts of their journey together are truly surprising. Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott, the early days before Amazon became a household name. There was just a young couple living in New York City. They worked corporate jobs and quietly shared dreams, far bigger than anyone around them could imagine. At the time, Mackenzie Scott was known as Mackenzie Tuttle. She met Jeffrey Preston Bezos in 1992 at D.E. Shaw, a hedge fund in Manhattan where they were both employed. Jeff held the role of senior vice president, and Mackenzie had recently joined as a research associate. Their first meeting was a mix of professionalism and fate. Mackenzie would later share that she was drawn to Jeff's loud laugh and confident intellect. In just a few months, they transitioned from co-workers to life partners. By 1993, they were married. Their bond was rooted in shared curiosity and a futuristic vision that went beyond ordinary goals. They showed a deep loyalty to one another, rare in the corporate world at the time. Mackenzie, an English graduate from Princeton, had studied under Nobel laureate Toni Morrison, she was an aspiring novelist, deeply passionate about literature and armed with a keen, analytical mind.
And basically, you need to be stubborn on your vision, because otherwise it'll be too easy to give up.
Jeff Bezos, by contrast, was a Princeton graduate in engineering and computer science, deeply passionate about systems, efficiency, and long-term planning. Their personalities were a study in contrast but complemented each other well. Mackenzie was introspective and reserved, while Jeff was strategic and bold. Together, they conceived an idea that would change the course of their lives. In 1994, Jeff came home with a daring proposition. He wanted to leave his job and launch an online bookstore. At the time, the internet was still a novelty, and few believed it had serious commercial value, but Mackenzie didn't let skepticism stand in her way. Her faith was more in the man than the model. They packed up their lives and drove from New York to Seattle, sketching out their business plan from the back seat of the car. Once there, they set up Amazon's very first office in their garage. Mackenzie played a hands-on role in those early days, managing finances, supporting operations, and handling customer service. What many don't realize is that she was the one who negotiated Amazon's initial freight deals and signed key vendor contracts. As Amazon grew from an online bookstore to a vast digital marketplace, Jeff's responsibilities expanded rapidly. He became the company's frontman, appearing at tech events, pitching to investors, and giving interviews. Mackenzie, meanwhile, made a conscious decision to avoid the spotlight. She focused on raising their 4 children, 3 biological and 1 adopted from China, while shielding their family from public attention. Despite the growing wealth and media coverage, their personal life remained remarkably understated. They avoided the extravagant lifestyle often associated with billionaires. Mackenzie continued writing and published her first novel, The Testing of Luther Albright, in 2005. The book won an American Book Award and reflected her ongoing commitment to creativity, education, and quiet philanthropy. Those close to the family often described them as remarkably down-to-earth. They had routines. They valued family dinners. Jeff, known for his intensity at work, would reportedly do the dishes every night, joking that it was the most attractive thing he could do. As time passed, Amazon's growth was meteoric. The company expanded far beyond books into music, cloud services, logistics, and more, becoming one of the most powerful tech giants in the world. Throughout this period, Mackenzie stayed largely behind the scenes. She published a second novel, Traps, in 2013, but remained focused on quieter, purposeful work. She volunteered at her children's school, supported anti-bullying causes, and gradually began establishing herself as a thoughtful philanthropist. This difference in how they occupied public space grew more pronounced over time. Jeff stepped into the role of a powerful, globally recognized CEO, while Mackenzie chose a life of discretion, simplicity, and ethical clarity. Eventually, the demands of running a massive corporation combined with the pressures of extreme wealth, fame, and personal growth began to affect their relationship. It started with small things, growing apart, moving in different circles, and spending less time together. When their divorce was publicly announced in January 2019, it shocked many outside observers, but those close to them weren't surprised. Still, the couple managed the separation with respect and dignity. Mackenzie agreed to let Jeff keep 75% of their shared Amazon stock and full voting control of the company.
But Bezos' wife doesn't like what she's reading. She's a writer herself. As John Blackstone reports, she is taking full advantage of the family business to respond.
She walked away with 25%, a staggering $36 billion. At the time, instantly placing her among the wealthiest women in the world. Jeff Bezos, meanwhile, continued pursuing his longtime passion for space through Blue Origin, stepped down as Amazon's CEO in 2021, and began speaking more openly about climate change and his philanthropic goals. In 2022, he announced plans to give away most of his fortune. Jeff Bezos has always been focused on making a lasting impact, and some parts of his early life may come as a surprise. The early life of Jeff Bezos before becoming the founder of Amazon. A space visionary or one of the richest men in history, Jeffrey Preston Bezos was a quiet, intensely curious child with a fascination for how things functioned. He was born Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen on January 12, 1964 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, to Jacqueline Guise and Ted Jorgensen. His mother was only 17, a high school student managing both parenting and schoolwork. His biological father, Ted, owned a bike shop and had once performed in a circus. He struggled to provide a stable home, and their marriage ended within a year. When Jeff was just over a year old, his mother married a Cuban immigrant named Miguel Mike Bezos. Mike later adopted Jeff, giving him the Bezos name. Mike had come to the US alone at age 15, learned English, worked his way through college, and built a stable career in the oil and gas sector. Jeff would later describe Mike as one of the most important influences in his life. That adoption was a key turning point. After that, Jeff never had contact with his biological father again, and the Bezos name would eventually become globally recognized. Jeff's early childhood was spent in Houston, Texas, where Mike worked as an engineer for Exxon from a young age. Jeff showed exceptional intelligence and a hands-on curiosity. As a toddler, he used a screwdriver to dismantle his crib because he wanted to sleep in a real bed. He often disassembled household appliances to understand how they worked. Jeff also spent summers at his grandparents' ranch in Cotulla, Texas. His maternal grandfather, Lawrence Preston Guise, was a regional director for the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. On the ranch, Jeff learned to vaccinate cattle, repair windmills, and fix machinery, experiences that, while not used professionally, helped shape his systematic, solution-oriented mindset. Eventually, the family moved to Miami, Florida. Jeff attended Miami Palmetto Senior High School, where he developed a strong interest in technology and computers. He excelled in math and science, and his passion for space exploration grew during this time. He participated in a student science program at the University of Florida and became a National Merit Scholar. At his 1980 high school graduation, Jeff gave a valedictorian speech where he shared his dream of one day colonizing space, a vision he would revisit years later with Blue Origin. Jeff wasn't just academically driven, he was entrepreneurial too. During high school, he launched his first venture, the Dream Institute, a summer camp for 4th to 6th graders that focused on science, literature, and space studies. He charged $600 per student and ran the program from a local elementary school. Though it wasn't a major financial success, it was his first step into leadership and innovation. Later that year, Jeff was accepted to Princeton University, initially planning to study physics. However, after a few tough semesters surrounded by top mathematical minds, he switched his focus to electrical engineering and computer science, a decision that would shape his future. At Princeton, Jeff found his community. He spent hours in the computer lab, deeply engaged in the emerging world of technology and information systems. He developed a reputation among peers as intensely focused and highly driven. Professors saw him as methodical and intellectually curious. After graduating summa cum laude in 1986, Jeff received job offers from major tech companies like Intel, Bell Labs, and Anderson Consulting, but he chose instead to join a startup called Fattel, where he helped build an international network for banking communications. At Fattel, he got his first real taste of systems engineering and global business operations, but his ambitions were bigger than optimizing finance systems. In 1988, he joined Bankers Trust, where he quickly rose to the role of vice president by age 26. But the most significant move of his early career came next. In 1990, Jeff Bezos joined D.E. Shaw & Co. D.E. Shaw was a quantitative hedge fund in New York, founded by computer scientist David E. Shaw. At the firm, Jeff Bezos excelled. The environment was built around analytical thinking, complex modeling, and unconventional problem-solving, exactly the type of setting where Jeff could thrive. By 1992, at just 28 years old, Jeff had risen to the position of senior vice president, one of the youngest in the company's history. He was earning a 7-figure salary and had earned the respect of both his colleagues and leadership. Yet, even with all that success, Jeff wasn't entirely fulfilled. While at D.E. Shaw, he started looking into potential business opportunities in the fast-growing world of the internet. He noticed a staggering statistic: web usage was increasing at over 2,300% per year. Very few had recognized what this meant, but Jeff saw it clearly. The future was going to be digital, and those who moved early would have the power to shape it. This insight triggered his next move. Jeff began compiling a list of products that could be sold online, items like CDs, software, and electronics. But the one that stood out the most to him was books. Books had universal appeal, consistent demand, and low shipping costs. So, in 1993, he started outlining his plan for an online bookstore. This wasn't just a business venture, it was a bold leap into unfamiliar territory. And for such a move, he needed someone who had faith in him, not just the data. That person was Mackenzie, a talented researcher and writer who sat just a few desks away at D.E. Shaw. Their paths crossed, and together they began a journey that would go on to reshape global commerce. Although their marriage eventually came to an end, Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott managed to build something extraordinary both in business and in their shared vision, something rare in the world of American corporate leadership. Now, we'd like to hear from you. What do you think about the deeply personal revelation Jeff Bezos shared with his current partner? Lauren Sanchez? Do you believe this played a significant role in the breakdown of his first marriage? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to click on the next video showing on your screen. You won't want to miss it.